Hi there. I don't know if I have time to do this whole book. I hope so. I'm running out of time on my camera here, but we're going to try it. Carnivorous Plants. I know you guys know this plant, Venus flytrap. Anyway, I thought this would be fun. I know I read a lot of storybooks and picture books, but I was going through books in the library and I thought this might be something fun. Some of you might really find interesting. So, Carnivorous Plants. And there it is. It's eating. You can see it's eating something right there. It's like it closed up on it. Huh? Here we go. A black fly hovers in the air over a strange-looking plant. Attracted by a sweet smell, here we go. Actually, no, I think it's better this way. Yeah, that's a better picture. Attracted by a sweet smell, the fly lands on the flat reddish surface of one of the plant's leaves and it begins to crawl across, and suddenly the leaf moves. Before the fly can get away, the two halves of the leaf close around it, 2 rows of teeth clamped together. All escape is cut off. The fly struggles to free itself, but the trap only closes more tightly, and soon the fly is dead. In a few days, there's nothing left but the hard parts of its body. I wonder if any of you have seen one of these in real life, a Venus flytrap. There we go. Well, this unlucky insect has become food for one of the world's most exotic plants, the Venus flytrap. The flytrap is one of about 450 species or kinds of carnivorous plants. Carnivorous. Carnivorous. It means meat eating. A plant that is carnivorous actually traps and eats insects, spiders, and in some cases, tiny animals like frogs and even mice. Carnivorous plants have developed this special way of feeding themselves in order to live and grow in a particular kind of environment. Well, in order to survive, most plants must take in water and minerals from the soil. These are combined with carbon dioxide and energy from sunlight to make the food that plants need to grow. Nitrogen is one of the most important minerals needed for plant growth, and for this reason, most plants grow best in places where the soil is rich in nitrogen. But carnivorous plants, they grow in wet, low-lying swamps and marshes. Here, the damp soil is nitrogen poor. Plants that take in nitrogen through their roots cannot live in such soil. Carnivorous plants stay alive by getting nitrogen and other minerals from another source. These plants get minerals from the bodies of the creatures that they trap and kill. The special leaves of carnivorous plants allow them to catch and use this handy source of food. So how do these unusual plants work? And here's where they are. This is like a swamp or marshy area. It's more marshy. That looks like a marsh, not a swamp so much. First, they must lure or attract the animals. Unlike a frog or a bird, a carnivorous plant can't reach out and grab an insect. It has to wait until the insect comes to it. For this reason, carnivorous plants have special ways of attracting insects and other animals. Some carnivorous plants give off a sweet smell like that of nectar, which attracts insects such as flies, bees, and ants, and others give off a smell of decay to which flies and some other insects are equally attracted. Many carnivorous plants have bright colors or patterns that are a lure, and a whole group has leaves covered with sparkling droplets that attract the insects with its bright color and light and sweet smell. Once an animal has been lured to the plant, it has to be trapped. Generally, carnivorous plants have 2 main kinds of traps, an active, or a moving trap, and a passive, or a still trap. Plants with active traps, like the Venus flytrap and the water wheel, which there's a picture I'm going to show you right now, they have parts that move quickly to trap any insect that lands on them. The moving parts clamp together like jaws or swing shut like a trap door. And this is called the water wheel plant. And I don't know how it works, but maybe you guys can do some research on that and find out how a water wheel traps its food. Well, passive traps do not depend on the movement of their parts to trap the animals. Some passive traps, like those of the sundew above left, they're a sticky trap. Here's some passive traps. This says left, a sundew plant, and above right is a pitcher plant. Oh, I've seen pitcher plants. They're kind of cool. So a sundew, it's like a sticky one. Although some of them may move after they've caught an insect, the actual trapping is done by a sticky substance on their leaves. This substance catches and holds the insects without any need for movement. Other passive traps are like a pitfall type. They're found in the pitcher plant, like the one shown in the picture you just saw. Inside the leaves of these plants, they're cleverly made little one-way tunnels, so the insects get lured in by the sweet nectar. Once they're inside, there's no way out. It's just a one-way tunnel. They can't get back out. All of these traps help feed the plants on which they grow, and usually many traps grow on one plant, and they all work together to catch, digest, and absorb the nutrition that the plant needs to survive. Perhaps the most familiar of the carnivorous plants is the Venus flytrap. It's found only in the United States, in the swamps of North Carolina. The entire plant grows about a foot or 30 centimeters tall. In spring, it has pretty white flowers blooming on top of these tall stalks, but the most interesting part of the plant are its leaves. The flytrap's narrow green leaves grow in a circle around the plant's base, and each leaf blade opens into two halves like a clamshell. And the two halves, they're called lobes, like your earlobes. They're attached to a center rib. Each lobe is about an inch or 2.5 centimeters in length, and the inside surface are like a reddish color. Around the curved outer edge of each lobe is a row of pointed bristles called cilia. On the inside surface of each lobe are 3 trigger hairs. And this close-up picture, you can see all of that. The reddish, there's the 3 trigger hairs. There's the cilia, the red, there's the middle. These strange leaves are the plant's traps. And I'm going to show you another picture. The pictures on these 2 pages show the leaf of a Venus flytrap capturing a spider. So here we go. When the lobes are in an open position, the traps are set, ready for a meal. And in the picture above, a spider has been attracted by the red color and the smell of the nectar. As the spider crawls onto the leaf's surface, it disturbs those trigger hairs. This is the signal for the lobes to move, but the trap must receive 2 signals in order to close. It will react only if 1 hair is touched twice or if 2 hairs are touched. This is the plant's way of making sure that it has actually caught a live moving creature and not just a piece of grass or a leaf. Once the double signal has been given, the lobes close quickly around the spider and the cilia lock together to prevent escape. At this point, a very small spider or insect could still crawl out from between the cilia. The plant rejects these tiny animals because it uses up too much of its energy to digest them, rather than the gain it would get from the body as food. As the trap closes, this fluid begins to ooze out of the inner surface of the lobes, and the spider is now drowned. The fluid contains digestive enzymes, substances. They change the spider's body material into a form that the plant can absorb as nourishment. As more and more enzymes flow into the trap, the spider's soft body begins to dissolve. In about 8 to 10 days, the body parts of the animal have become nitrogen-rich liquid, and it's absorbed into the plant. And then the trap door opens, and out falls the little hard body parts that the plant couldn't digest. And then the trap is now set again. 1 trap will usually catch and digest an average of 3 meals before it withers up and dies. Well, another carnivorous plant, you don't have to look it up, we're going to read. Another carnivorous plant that uses an active trap, much like the Venus flytrap, is known as the water wheel plant. That's the one I just said, do a little research, but here we are right now. The water wheel plant. It's found in Europe, Australia, India, Japan, and Africa. The small rootless plant, it floats just under the surface of quiet ponds and swamps, and the whole plant is only between 4 to 12 inches or 10 to 30 centimeters. It's little white flowers that bloom in the spring. They show above the water surface, and the traps are underwater. Well, each plant has a slender stem with leaves that are almost transparent. And look again, they're kind of see-through. Those leaves are almost transparent. Groups of 8 leaves are arranged around the stem like the spokes of a wheel. This is why the plant's called the water wheel. And here's what it looks like above ground. This is a cool picture. This picture shows a single leaf of the water wheel plant, greatly magnified. That's the top one. And then the big picture. This special photograph shows a water wheel plant from the end of its stem. You can see how the leaves are arranged in a wheel around the stem. So that's looking down. It does kind of look like a wheel. And that's a leaf up close. And they are kind of see-through. They're like transparent. The water wheel's leaves are its traps. Each leaf is very tiny, less than 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters long. Such tiny traps can catch only very small creatures, and the water wheel feeds on water fleas, on plankton, or microscopic water animals, and also on tiny larvae, insects that are at the early stage of development. The water wheel's leaves act just like underwater Venus flytrap. They have 2 lobes, bristles, trigger hairs. When an insect enters the trap, the halves snap shut in a fraction of a second. The water wheel then digests its meal and reopens to catch the next one. Both the Venus flytrap and the water wheel plant use a clamping movement to trap animals, but another type of carnivorous plant with an active trap is called the bladderwort. It moves in a different way. The bladderwort has a kind of trap door for catching meals. Bladderworts are found in many parts of the world. Although some bladderworts grow on land, most grow in ponds and swamps. Like the water wheel plants, they do not have roots. They just float in clumps just below the water's surface. And in summer, their tiny yellow or purple flowers bloom up above the water. And here, opposite, small photograph shows bladderwort plants floating in the pond. And the large photograph, through a microscope, shows all the little tiny bladders that grow on a single plant. There we go. Growing all along the bladderwort's thin stems are its leaves. Each leaf is like a little airbag or a bladder, and they're very small. The tiniest one is, the biggest one is only about 1/5 of an inch or 5 millimeters long. And these tiny balloon-like leaves are the traps that they use to catch water fleas, larvae, and sometimes even small tadpoles. At one end of each bladder are these little feathery hairs that serve as the trigger hairs. They're arranged around an opening, across which is a tiny trap door. The door swings open only one way, inward. To trap insects, the bladder uses suction. When the door is closed and the bladder is empty, its walls are limp and collapsed. Then an insect swims by and it brushes against those trigger hairs. Suddenly, the bladder walls expand. This forces the trapdoor open. It creates a sucking action. The walls expand, water rushes in, it pulls the insect in with it, and then the trapdoor slams shut. Now the insect is caught inside the bladder. That's kind of cool. Immediately, the digestive enzymes inside the bladder go to work. And if it's a tiny insect, it only takes about 15 to 30 minutes to absorb the nitrogen and the minerals from the body. But if the insect is larger, it can take up to about 2 hours. Sometimes the bladder gets a hold of an insect or larva that's just too large to fit inside. And then it will just eat it bit by bit, like spaghetti, where you just can eat noodles a little bit at a time. A single bladder can catch and digest about 15 small creatures before it dies. Well, fly traps, water wheels, and bladderworts all use active traps to catch their food. But other carnivorous plants use passive traps. These are traps that don't depend on movement. One group of plants, called the sundews, uses a sticky trap. The small round leaf sundew, it's a good example of the way a sticky trap works. This plant grows in swampy areas in the world, including parts of the United States. It's small, about 3.5 inches or 8 centimeters across, and it's often partly hidden among other taller weeds and plants that will grow around it. Well, in summer, the round leaf's tall center stems carry white flowers, and the leaves of the sundew, they look bright red. And they seem to be covered with sparkling drops of dew. But what looks like pretty red dewdrop covered leaf is really a deadly trap for flies and other insects. Let's get the glare out of there. There we go. Here's a close-up view of the surface of the sundew. The sundew's leaves are covered with many little stalks of different heights. At the top of each stalk is a tiny gland that produces a clear, sticky liquid. This liquid forms a droplet on the tip of the stalk, and usually the gland is kind of a reddish color, so the liquid on it looks red too. And I'm going to show you a picture here. You'll see it. They look like little red droplets all at the tip. See all those little red, like the little red droplets? That's the sticky stuff. Flies and other insects are drawn to the sundew by the color and the sparkling light and the attractive scent that the plant gives off. When a fly lands on the sundew leaf, it is in trouble. Immediately, its feet are caught in the sticky liquid. As the fly struggles to escape, more sticky liquid flows out of the glands, and now the fly is trapped for good. As in the pictures above, the stalks around the fly bend toward its body, giving off more liquid. The whole leaf curls to cup the body. You know, I didn't look that closely when I showed them to you. We're going to look at these again. And digestive enzymes work until the soft parts of the fly have dissolved and become absorbed into the leaf. It takes about 4 or 5 days, and then the leaf will uncurl. So yeah, look. So here it is, and now the fly is trapped. And then look, it curls over the fly, wraps around it. Oh, I didn't really look that close before. And the picture on these 2 pages show a fly being trapped and digested by a sundew. Imagine seeing that in nature, you know, in real life, not just a photograph. That would be so neat. This is called the spoonleaf sundew, and I think I know why. It looks like spoons, doesn't it? Soup spoons. The round leaf sundew is only one of about 90 kinds of sundews found all around the world. Sundews have many different leaf shapes, round, narrow, thread-like. They can vary in size. Some African sundews are giants. Their leaves are 2 feet long or 60 centimeters. They actually trap and digest small animals like mice. But most sundews are small. One smaller type is the spoonleaf sundew, and it's found in the swampy areas around in Asia, Australia, and the Philippines. Like sundews, like all sundews, its leaves are arranged in a circle around the center, close to the ground. Growing up from the center is one tall stem, and then the flowers bloom on top in the spring and summer. The spoonleaf traps and digests animals the same way that the round leaf does. Since it's a very small plant with leaves only about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters long, it catches only little tiny things like gnats and lice. All sundews have leaves with stalks tipped by liquid-producing glands, like the round leaf sundew did. In all kinds, the actual trapping of the insect is done by the sticky liquid. Once the insect is trapped, the stalks then bend toward its body to surround it with those digestive enzymes. In some sundews, the whole leaf will curl around the insect during this digestion process. And here's a picture of some narrow leaf sundews. And see, they just grow among all the grasses and the other plants, so you might not even notice them if you're walking by. Well, the narrowleaf sundew, that's the one we just saw, the narrowleaf. The narrowleaf sundew, here's one in action. And see how it's curling around that fly? That is kind of cool right there, and then it's curling down around it. The narrow-leaf sundew is one type that curls tightly around the animals it's caught. And in the picture, we see a spider just got trapped by the sticky fluid. And the picture on the right shows the same leaf about 8 hours later. That took 8 hours to get from there to there. Huh. Okay, that's a long watch. About 8 hours. I guess, yeah, it's a plant, so, okay. About 8 hours later, it's now curled around the spider to digest the body. Several varieties of this plant are found in the United States and Japan. Usually its leaves are only about an inch or 2.5 centimeters long. Yet, they can often trap large insects like dragonflies and butterflies by using teamwork. Several leaves on the same plant will work together, each one trapping a different part of the insect's body. Another kind of sundew that curls around trapped insects is called the thread-leaf sundew. This is a tall, trailing plant with these long, narrow leaves. And different varieties of the thread-leaf grow in North America, Asia, Africa, and Australia. Even though the leaves look a bit different from the other sundews, they work the same way. They're covered with sticky top stalks that trap the insects, and when it has caught a fly or a gnat, its long leaf will coil around the insect's body while digestion is taking place. So it kind of wraps around like a rope or something. These dragonflies, and here's an up-close picture, these dragonflies were caught by their wings when they flew near the sticky leaves of a narrow-leaf sundew plant. Kind of cool. Another group of carnivorous plants that catches insects with sticky traps is the butterwort family. Not Mrs. Butterworth maple syrup, but butterwort. Actually, if you just take the H off, it's the same. Butterwort. Butterwort. I wonder how they came up with the name Butterworth. I wonder if it's related. The butterwort family. There's about 30 kinds of butterworts growing in North America and parts of Asia. Most grow in swamps and marshes. The special type in these pictures you're going to see, they grow in high rocky mountains in Japan. Like all butterworts, the fleshy green leaves of this plant grow close to the ground in a cluster, and growing out of the center are tall stems with flowers that bloom in spring and summer. The leaves of the butterwort are its traps. They're small, about 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeters, so they can trap and digest only tiny insects like ants and small gnats and things. The surface of each leaf has 2 kinds of glands. One kind gives off this oily, sticky substance, and this substance makes the leaves feel greasy or buttery when you touch them. Butterwort, I bet that's where it gets its name. And it also has a musty smell to attract the insects. Once an insect has crawled onto the leaf and gotten stuck, the edges of the leaf, they roll up like a cup. That's kind of cool, and you're going to see this picture right now. Then another set of glands begins to give off the digestive liquid. The insect is killed, and the body gets digested in a couple of days. See how they look like ears almost that curl around into like a little cup, like a little dish. It's kind of cool. Of all the carnivorous plants with passive traps, perhaps none are more exotic looking than the pitcher plants. These plants have special leaves that are hollow, and they hold water like a jug or a pitcher. The leaves are also the plant's traps. Their structure and appearance are so unusual. People have given them fancy names like the devil's jug, the huntsman's cup, the Indian dipper. There's about 80 kinds of pitcher plants growing in the wetlands of the world. Many, like the North American pitcher plant shown above, I'm going to show you the picture, they grow close to the ground in a circle around a center base, and all of the leaves of these plants are a trap for catching insects. See that? It's like a hollow inside, like a pitcher. Other pitcher plants are found in tropical wetlands, Malaysia, Madagascar, Sri Lanka. These plants have many brightly colored leaves growing on vines. See how they're hanging down like a sack? Those are cool. I've seen those on TV. I've seen some of these in person too. That's arboretums. These tropical pitcher plants have ordinary green leaves as well as brightly colored pitcher leaves. And the pictures above, I'm going to show you, show how they grow from a little tendril or like a little thread into a stem. And as the leaf grows, it swells and it forms this colorful jug. And then the top opens to form a leafy hood. In some pitcher plants, the hood is just frilly around the edges, but in others, it makes like a roof above the opening. The leaves of various kinds of pitcher plants differ in size, color, pattern, and shape. They can be 2 inches up to 2 feet. Some pitcher plants trap insects like flies, ants, beetles, and things, but the largest ones will trap frogs and mice. Whatever their size or appearance, all pitchers trap animals pretty much the same way. So there's how it starts, and then it becomes a little pitcher. And here's kind of a diagram here. See, there's like the little flap lid there. Kind of neat. A pitcher trap is passive. It doesn't need to move to trap an insect. Instead, it has a clever design that's like a prison for any insect that crawls into it. So the leaf forms a tube. The top is the opening, usually a pretty bright color. The bottom part is shaped like a cup, and rainwater will collect in the cup. In the pitchers that grow close to the ground, water can also be pulled up from the soil to fill that cup. And in most types of plants, the hood above the opening helps to keep too much rainwater from coming in. This hood always stays open, never snaps shut to trap the insect, as some people believe. And you can see this one actually, it's an x-ray, and it shows that it has some water down in there that it's collected. A sweet nectar is produced around the lip of the pitcher opening. Attracted by the nectar and the bright colors, an insect will fly or crawl onto the lip, and then it begins to drink the nectar and then crawls further down, searching for more. When the insect moves into the tube of the pitcher plant, now it's in trouble. The inside walls of the tube are slick. Oh, my cat knocked my camera over again a little bit. Sorry. Oh, let me fix this. There we go. Okay. The inside walls of the tube are slick and they're slippery like ice, and so the insect just slips further down. And there it finds its footing along these hairs that line the lower part of the tube. And as seen in the pitcher plant to the left, I'm going to show you, the hairs are all facing downward toward the pool of water. Once the insect has crawled past those hairs, it's impossible to get back up. The insect struggles. It finally becomes too exhausted, and then it falls into the water below where it drowns. So see, it comes down and comes past these little spiky hairs, and then it can't get back up past them. So it falls down into the water down below, and it drowns. Very clever plant. The digestive enzymes flow into the pool, as in the other carnivorous plants. The soft parts of the insect's body get digested and absorbed. The hard parts, they collect in the bottom of the pitcher. And here's some pictures, picture and pitcher. Now see, the insect has drowned inside this pitcher plant. And then the other one, this pitcher plant has been cut open. All right, we got cut off here. So we're joining in with the rest of the book. This is where we left off. I was showing you, oops, let's turn around, these pictures of the pitcher plant. And I was just talking about this part. So one picture shows this one where it's been cut open, so you can see the remains of the insects that have been trapped and digested. That's that one. It was cut open. Pitcher plants, like all the carnivorous plants in this book, have found ways to thrive in places where most plants could not live. With the help of their strange and often beautiful leaves, they really do, they feed on the creatures that share their marsh environment. But as hardy as carnivorous plants are, today the lives of many of them are in danger. As people drain more and more of the marshlands to make way for buildings and roads, well, the plants have fewer places to grow. They're becoming increasingly rare. And today people are trying to grow some of these carnivorous plants in indoor greenhouses. And in this way they hope to preserve these fascinating and unusual plants and to make sure that they do not disappear from our world. And at the back page there's a couple pictures for you and a glossary of terms. It's got all the different words and then a little definition of them. And it would be great when you guys come back to the library that you know, some of you might want to check this book out, or some other books. I think we have a few on carnivorous plants and just other interesting plants and trees and wildlife, and some great books that I think you would enjoy. So I thought you would like this one. I wanted to read that one to you. All right, guys. Sorry for the little shift. I ran out of battery like the last, look at 2 minutes, the last 2 minutes of the book I ran out, so we'll have to kind of merge the two. All right, see you on the next one. Bye.